This is, in the larger context of the topic of due diligence, which of course you have. They call it inspections for residential, but for commercial properties, they tend to call it due diligence. And there's a whole slew of factors to look at as you're investigating the purchase of a property, but absolutely you should look at environmental issues. For example, we're in El Segundo. Almost every property transaction in El Segundo has environmental issues. Why? Well, the Standard Oil refinery used to operate before there was Chevron and before there were really environmental regulations. So a lot of the ground in El Segundo has environmental issues under the current laws. So every time a property trades, you should know what you're getting, and oftentimes that will involve hiring an environmental consulting firm. They have reports. If you are not familiar, they're called phase ones, and that's sort of an initial inquiry to see if it is any issues. As a buyer, you want to know that because you might have to pay to have it remediated. And as a seller, you want to know that, probably because the buyer's going to ask, but also so that when you close the transaction, both parties have the same information and you don't have a claim coming back to you. And now, most of these issues can be remediated. There's a whole industry out there, and there's consultants available on the State of California website. Again, if you have a good team as you're going through your acquisition or your sale, your attorney will point out from his or her checklist, this is something to really be aware of, is the environmental risk of the actual land. And then it also will go into your leases. And usually there's a baseline that says the landlord knows about this as of today. And then when the tenant comes in, they reference that baseline. And so when the tenant leaves, they can say, well, this happened, either this was a pre-existing condition or the tenant caused this to happen. And then the tenant would, if the tenant caused it to happen, the tenant's job to remediate.